So I'm going to start today. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing really good. Last we spoke was last Thursday. Hopefully everybody is submitting their Foley project. I got Steve's. It cracked me up. You did a nice job. Thank you very much for that. Jordan, Diego, try and get a move on to get those done for me, please. Because I'm actually rolling out a new project today.
The project with the sound effects and stuff.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
I
think 1 or 2 months.
I think so.
Awesome.
Well, look, the deadline was this past Friday, but obviously you can still submit afterwards. I try to put due dates in because hopefully when you return next year, you'll kind of understand the importance and the need of the deadlines that we have. I just put dates out there like I'd love to have it by, but if you don't get it in by then, it's okay. But that's definitely not something I want anybody getting used to for next year because things move at a pretty quick pace in our program. And if you think about it, one class is 2.5 hours. That's like taking 2 classes. So if you miss a class, you miss a lot of material that gets covered. But anywho, yeah, just keep a keep a mental note of when stuff's due. I've actually pushed due dates back to like the middle of May for some stuff. So if you do want to hand in anything from like the second marking period or something, if you get to it, I'll be happy to accept that and give you credit for it. But yeah, let me jump over here. So for those of you that don't know, there was what was called a pink moon last night. And I looked it up because when I took a picture of it, I'm like, that moon's not pink. So apparently it has nothing to do with the moon turning pink. It has something to do with this full moon is one of the first full moons of spring. And apparently this full moon coincides with some kind of pink flower that is in bloom. So they call it the pink moon. So ruined it for everyone. If you see a picture of a pink moon from last night, they colored it. But there's nothing wrong with that. So let me share this with you real quick. So I took out my good camera, which I don't really do as much as I used to or would like to, but I took out my professional camera and I set it up on top of a mailbox and took some shots. All right. You see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Came out pretty good, huh? So let's see here. So it was beautiful last night. It was a huge full moon. But to kind of give you an idea, and I have my friends who are joking around, giving me a hard time. So I'm going to show you this real quick. So what I did, now technically that I took that photo, right? But what you have to do is if you took a picture, and I'm going to show you right now. Can you see the screen right now? It looks like a bunch of slides on the page. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. So if you take a pic, now believe it or not, when you take a photograph of the moon is actually really bright. You know where the moon gets its light from? Anyone? Where does the moon, why is the moon shiny? Go ahead, Steve.
Because it's reflecting the sun.
You are 1,000% correct. Thank you, Steve. So you're basically shooting something that is reflecting sunlight. So it's pretty bright. So it's really interesting to see that. Yeah, I saw it. Okay. So now what I had to do was, if you notice, the picture was way too bright. The background looks pretty good, but the moon's too bright. So what do you have to do is I literally took 2 photographs. I sat there and took my time trying to, dial in what's called my exposure. So the first one was way too bright. That one was getting a little bit better. I got a little bit darker. But what happened is I didn't stay still long enough and it got shaky and it got blurry. So that was a bummer. So when you take these exposures at night, you have to be super careful. You have to put it on a tripod. Here's another example when I finally started figuring it out. Give it a sec. Still a little bit blurry, a little better, but still a little bit blurry. So let me jump forward. So once I started to figure out what I wanted, as you can see, I took a lot of photos. So let's jump to the favorites. So what I finally did towards the end is I took a picture and this is my background, right? So I have my background looking just the way I want it, right? But, obviously this is entirely too bright, okay? So you can't expose for both. It's a little hard to do. There is a way you can do it, but you put filters. They look like sunglasses for your lens. You put them on. I didn't happen to have one on me, so I knew I was going to put this in Photoshop and take 2 photos. So I got my one good picture of the background, and then I got one good picture of the moon. And then what I really did was I composited them together. And that's why I took this photo, because I'm about to lead up to what our new project is going to be. But check this out. This is what I'm showing you what I did. Say if I turn this off, there's the moon, right? So all I did was I cut it out, and then I plopped it right here. You know, I could sit here and do all kinds of, you know, goofy, funky stuff with it when I'm done. But essentially, you know, and I personally
You
don't
can make
feel-
the moon upside down.
Oh, you could do all kinds of stuff. I could, you know, how many moons do you want? You want a couple? Yeah, a whole bunch of moons. You know, but that's kind of the thing is, you know, some people are what they call purists, where they don't alter their image. They do. Now, like I said, I could have taken that picture had I had the right equipment by itself and not have to alter it in Photoshop. But as I said, it was kind of a spur of the moment. I actually took my kids fishing. I just got home and I'm like, oh, and I had to run, grab a camera and kind of get it. I couldn't find the filter. So this is kind of what I came up with. But as I said, you know, I know what I'm doing. I took a nice picture. You know, you zoom in, you can really see the detail in the moon, which was really, really cool. It was so big last night. You can actually see where the impacts from these meteors or asteroids that hit, you know, you see all these splats right here. So all I did was I just took a really close detail of the moon, and then I stuck it in my background and I brightened up the background a little bit. So that's how you do it. Now, why am I showing you this is because our next project is we're going to be working in Photoshop, okay? And we're going to create what's called a surreal image. Does anybody know what a surreal, what the word surreal means? Anyone? No, no takers? Does anybody know who Salvador Dali is?
I have no idea who that
The
is.
famous painter.
Oh yeah,
Salvador-
he was a painter.
Okay. Does everybody remember that painting of the melting clocks?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to show you this really quick. And I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite artists who was very popular during one of the famous movements in history, artistic movements in history. And this guy was a little bit offbeat, so you know he's a good artist. So Salvador Dali. Now, if you look at his images, this guy's awesome. Like, he has the world's greatest mustache, as you can see. So he was a very creative person. Somebody did that as a drawing. That's pretty awesome. But when you think of Salvador Dali, he did a lot of crazy stuff. So when you look in, he was a surreal artist. He did many of these paintings. This is his most famous one. It's called The Persistence of Time. And right here. So surrealism, and I'll jump to that over on my project page, but this is probably one of the more well-known pieces. And the cool thing about him, his artwork was very telling of his, like many artists, about his life and his history. Like, there's a reason why you can see this is an eyelash. This is almost a face. These ants on this clock. This is very symbolic. There's a lot of symbolism in it, which means it's not just about ants or a melted clock or a face. There's reasons behind all of it. And if you read about Salvador Dali, you'll actually kind of understand why he painted the things that he painted, but he did it in a surrealistic way. So what surrealism is you're basically just showing this dreamlike, this dreamscape or imaginary quality. You know, he did some pretty cool, crazy stuff. And I personally love it just because, you know, there's so many artists out there. And he really was an innovator with this type of art. It's great if you know, just do a little research on it. But here's the thing. If you just look up the word surrealism, okay, there's so many. Does anybody remember this one? Magritte was his name as an artist. This was a
I
very,
don't know. I never seen that picture before.
this is a very well-known artist too. But you have to imagine all of these paintings. So surrealism, believe it or not, was actually really popular in the early 1900s, and it went all the way through to the 60s. But he was a very well-known. But it's funny, if you go through this stuff more and more, you may start to go, oh, I remember that picture. I remember that picture. But people are still to this day creating surrealistic art, whether it's a painting, a drawing, or a big thing now is Photoshop. And that's this project is a great way to learn about Photoshop. And we talked about it before, called layers, and doing what's called a composite, multiple layers on top of one another to create an image. So I'll tell you what, we'll jump over to the project page real quick. Oh, you know what? Let me open up my participants, and I'm going to open up the chat real quick. Okay. So I want to show you, all this stuff is live right now. I'll jump over to Schoology and show you. There's two new projects. There's the, don't forget, there's this project, and then there's the Exploratory. And I'll go over the Exploratory at the end. Please do not forget, I'm going to do a quick little segue. There are new frame modules that have been uploaded for the professional development stuff, called Frame 1.2 Marketable Skills and 2.2 Employment Search. Pretty cool thing. My son's graduating this year and he's going to look for a summer job. He has a job now. He's not really thrilled, but he's looking. So I literally gave him this module to work on, ways to find a job, what to look for in a job, employment websites, and he's already off and rolling, looking on these websites, and he's got a few leads for some job interviews. So, you know, you're ever looking for a job, this is a great module to work on. Same thing here with marketable skills. This is basically helps you do an inventory of like what good skills you have, whether they be physical or what they call soft skills. Are you polite? Can you communicate well? Do you have good, are you very outgoing? Are you funny? And then you take an assessment of these skills and apply it to what kind of jobs are looking for those skills that you possess. So pretty cool stuff. So jumping back, we'll go back to the project page. Oh, I'm sorry. So we'll go back to here, close that up. So don't forget frame modules, but marking period 4, you'll see I put the new Exploratory in there. I'll just go over this real quick because it's so quick. You're working on the color green. Why not? It's springtime, right? I thought this would be a great thing to give you a specific color to work on. Now, usually when I think of springtime, everything's blooming, color green. Unfortunately, I have terrible allergies, so I'm not always outside. And if I am, I have to take my meds and my eye drops and all that fun stuff. But as you can see here with this collage, you don't need to go outside to get pictures of green. There's a bike, there's vegetables, there's sports equipment, t-shirt, toothbrush. You know, use all those things we learned about with composition and take some interesting pictures of the color green. It doesn't have to be 100% green like the bike has some blue and some black, but it could be Skittles. You know, it could be candy. It could be a soda can like Sprite. It could be clothing, toys, electronics, video games, action figures. So, you know, just, you know, bang out a lot of you, and I'll tell you, for those of you that hear them and doing them, you've been doing a particularly nice job on them, so I appreciate it. So work on that. That's the color green. Okay. And then we're going to jump back now. And then here's the project. Now, you have all had a little bit of experience with Photoshop right now. But my thing is today, I'm just showing you the overview of the project and, you know, what I'm looking for you to do. And then Thursday, I'll roll out the tutorial. I'll spend a class kind of pulling my own images that I want to do to create my portrait. But the goal for today is just to go over it and for you to start thinking about what you want to do and then researching and pulling images. So when Thursday rolls around, you should be able to, you know what's going on and have any specific questions that you might have about the project. So this is the actual intro. It'll take you to the website. So we'll go to the instructions. So this is the page. So if you go up here, market period 4, Section 11, Intro to Photoshop. And as I said, surrealistic portrait. And I just started talking about surrealism, right? So surrealism and composting, I'm sorry, composting. Surrealism is an art form that's perfect for Photoshop because you can take these crazy images and paste them all together to create a cool image. So surrealism means surrealism is destructive, but it only destroys what it considers to be the shackles limiting our vision. That's a pretty deep statement. That's that mustache guy, Salvador Dali. So up until that point, there were some artistic movements taking place. You know, you had like Cubism was taking place and all of these non-traditional forms of art. For hundreds of years, everything was traditional, classical, beautiful portraits of people and landscapes. Once the early 1900s, after actually mid 1800s and on, the Industrial Revolution, people were really starting to kind of question art, what it was about, pushing boundaries and testing things. And surrealism was a big one, you know, during the 1920s and 30s. It had a lot to do with psychology. Now, believe it or not, psychology was really starting to come into its own in terms of knowing more about it. And Sigmund Freud is a really famous psychologist. And so a lot of people were interested in psychology. They're reading books about it, papers about it, visiting psychologists and things and learning about themselves. So it was also influenced by writings, art, and film. It explored the subconscious areas of the mind and tried to depict dreams or random thoughts. So, you know, if you've ever had a crazy kind of dream, you're like, why is there a tiger sitting on the car on top of a volcano? You know what I mean? So your dreams can be interpreted to mean different things. Okay, does that make sense? So when I say to you to come up with a dream-like sequence, that's what surrealism is. It's like a dream. It's like a subconscious thought. So this is an important part for you to kind of understand right here. Features of surrealism, features of surrealistic art. Dreamlike scenes and symbolic images. So I just mentioned that. You could use a picture of glasses and it could symbolize something else, like it could mean that you need vision, or it could mean maybe my dad growing up always had glasses. So maybe I want to do a surrealistic portrait about my dad, but not have his face in it. So I could put all the things I like about him. You know, his coffee mug he always had, his glasses that he always wore. So things like, so they could be symbols for something else. Unexpected illogical juxtapositions. That means like twisting, distorting perspective. Like you could make a tiger really, really small and a baby really, really big. Like things that just don't make sense and go against one another. That's a part of surrealism. Spontaneous things that go on, games and techniques that create random effects, visual puns, distorted figures, and biomorphic shapes. So I'll show you all about that. So what I would like for you to do, and before you even start figuring out what image is and what you want to do, I would love for you to go through this history of surrealism. It's 25 slides. It's not crazy, but it's really well done. And it covers everything that I'm really starting to talk about. And this is nice too. Why was surrealism such a big deal back then? And it tells you what was going on in the world. There was a big World War going on, World War I, and then I mentioned Sigmund Freud. Okay, so this is a really kind of great way to learn a little bit about history, a little bit about art history. And it's always important to be like, well, I don't understand this artist, his paintings make no sense. If you understand the time period and what was going on that influenced that person, like, it totally makes sense now. I know why these pictures are so violent and disturbing, because there was a World War taking place. But there's some really good artists in here, okay, that breaks it all down. There's that picture with the apple that I talked about. There's Salvador Dali, love that guy. He lived all the way up until 1989 too. But there's some great stuff in here. I'm not going to hold you back, but there's some really, really cool stuff. So when you're going and moving on, your points to consider. Start with a well thought out creative idea. Throwing two random things together doesn't necessarily qualify it as being surreal. Use quality photos. Remember how I told you to search for good images? I'll show you that today. Avoid images from pop culture. Like, I don't like you putting in like, you know, Kanye West or Brad Pitt. I don't want anything that's easily recognizable. Like you can put in, you know, if you had AirPods or something, or a piece of technology maybe, but not a well-known person. It just distracts because, you know, let's say you put Kanye West in your surrealistic portrait and the person, a judge in a competition's like, man, I hate Kanye West. I don't know how you could, but you know, you want to make sure you stay away from that. Consider the background, middle ground, and foreground. Remember, we talk about that in photography. Okay. So here's some ideas. Change the size and scale. For example, the car, the size of a living room, or bugs, the size of people. Turn the accepted order of things upside down, like dogs walking people instead of people walking dogs. Mix internal and external spaces, like trees growing in the kitchen. Transform one object into another, like a car turning into a fish, like this metamorphosis. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do at the end, you're just going to make a surrealistic collage, you know, a big picture of all your surrealistic thing. And I'm going to, you know, question you on it. Like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? I'll probably have a, you know, your quiz at the end will be like a questionnaire on why you chose the things you did. I'm going to write that down. Questions about surreal picture. Okay. So this is giving you everything you need. Okay. Create an imaginary dreamlike composition. I have really good examples. You has to have at least 5 objects, and an object could be a people, person, place, or thing. You can use filters from Photoshop. You can do some crazy stuff. But here's some cool pictures. These are all done in Photoshop. Okay. If you type in surreal Photoshop, there's a bajillion images that show up. But there's some really cool ones in here. The aquarium inside the turtle. Thought that was cool. You know, a big soda can and a person standing on top. You know, like I said, you could see here, the scale is very different. Here's a kid fishing on top of a fish. So there's a lot of neat things that you could do. You could do some really crazy ones. But there's some really good opportunities. I love this one. The shark jumping into the pool. And then here's the one I told you where it morphs. It looks like he's dragging a blanket and then it's the road. So it's really, really cool. You're really just limited to your imagination and what you know about Photoshop. But this is a great opportunity to learn more. And then last but not least, I threw some cool tips and tricks in that you could do. You know, and you have to just read through it, but there's some really good, like what tools you should use, how you should cut them out, how you should paste them in. I know there's a lot of words in here, but this stuff is super helpful. And these are some student examples in the past of some surreal images. I love to give examples because it gives you an idea. Okay. So there's some good stuff in here. Okay. So it's all about just, you know, having a direction to go in and just run with it. And then down here, some resources. I'll be covering what's in these resources on Thursday. It covers a basic Photoshop tutorial, how to work with layers. That's a big deal. That's how we're going to make our composite, having all these individual images slapped on top of one another. And then here's even ways to blend your images together. And here's an actual project on how this person made that surrealistic portrait. So last but not least, here's that example. Like I said, if I wanted to go and kind of do some crazy stuff, I could go in and, you know, change my colored background, you know, to a crazy looking color like that. I could take the moon, you know, I could make it oblong, make a copy of it. Right. And then take this moon. As I said, you can run these crazy distortions and make it look surreal. So there's not much you can't do. Now watch this. I could take what I have here, just make part of a moon. So you get what I'm doing? I'm trying to create this dreamlike sequence. Now, as you can see, just plopping images on here is not going to work. Just plop, 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 plop. you have to have a reasoning to it, and why does it make sense? Maybe I put a wolf in here howling at the moon, or I could make the moon look like a lollipop. But there would be reasoning for doing all of the things that I do. Okay. So it's just a matter of having an idea and just running with it. Now, you can obviously take pictures off the internet. I would love that you would at least have some pictures that you took, like a dog or a shoe or your face or your hand or something, because it makes it more meaningful because you took the picture. Last but not least, if you were going to, which you should, search for your images. Like, let's say I go, I want a lollipop, and put that picture in the moon. So don't forget, you go to tools, size, large. That's so, so important, because you're going to get the best quality image that you can find. Okay. So now let's see if I can do something with this real quick. Okay. So don't tell them I stole this. Okay. But I'll get way more in depth with this tomorrow, or I'm sorry, Thursday. Okay. So let's say I have my screenshot, but I'm just trying to give you a vague idea of what this is going to be all about. Okay. So I have this picture of my popsicle stick, or popsicle lollipop. Go a little bit outside the lines. Okay. So as you can see, I'm not doing the best possible job on the planet, but I'm doing it just enough so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay. So, maybe there's a way that I could take the moon here and kind of make it look like a moon lollipop or something. So it's more just a matter of, having an idea. Now, is this idea going to work? I don't know. It might not. I'm not a big fan of it right now, but let's say I just kind of took the time and messed with it for a while. Maybe I could get something cool going. I feel like it needs more kind of style to it. Like, maybe that works a little bit. It's a little muddy looking, but I think everybody kind of gets the point of what I'm doing. But I have, here's my moon-shaped lollipop. So, the first thing everybody should do, get a piece of paper, start writing down, what is it that I want to do? Do I want to do something with people, places, things, food, objects? What could I do? Do the research on the website, on the page that I gave you. There's a ton of reference for you to look at the slideshows, go look at some videos, and really start to figure it out. But when you show up on Thursday, I'm just going to ask you what ideas you have, and then we can brainstorm. Remember how we talked about that? So we can just have a brainstorming session, figure out what we want to do, and then we'll just attack it after that. But Thursday, I am going to show you how to actually do this project from start to finish. Okay. So you'll have a really good idea on how to tackle this project. Okay. What do you think? Sound like fun?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fun.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just trying to break things up a little bit, and we'll probably visit sound again. But I'm going to show you some really cool stuff. And I've showed you before, like how to trace things out, how to add crazy filter effects, colors, distortions is a big thing too. Like smears, and you can do pinch, ripple, spherical, all kinds of crazy stuff. So the more ideas you have and you come to the table with on Thursday, the more we can run with. Maybe I'll ask each one of you to pick an object and I'll make a surreal. What do you think of that? So I'll ask 4 of you and I'll pick one if it's the same 4 and then one for myself. So you can all pick an object for me. We'll find it. And then I'll try and put a surrealistic image together. Okay. So that's what I have. If you have any questions, let me know.